Uncle Ron and stuff. Today I'm going to talk about zone control valves and a HVAC system. It's obviously a hot air and cool air, and I'm in my main attic, and this is the main system over here for the whole thing. And I just wanted to give you a look at the mess I have here. Anyway, the main duct is this duct right here, and you can see these guys coming down off of it and feeding various rooms off the main duct. That's the main supply or duct up there, and here it goes in, and you have trouble seeing it, but right there is where there is a zone control valve, and it's of the old style. That's one zone control valve, and those are 24 volt AC, and they're normally open. So when a zone calls for heat like this one, it leaves that zone open and closes all the other zones. Now I have 3 zones. This is the main one right here, the big one, zone 1. Over here, you can see this guy coming off right there. It comes over and comes off the stack. That's the 3rd zone. And then finally, you can see up here coming off is the 2nd zone, and it goes down and runs along there. Okay, the main zone, and there is a valve. It's hard to see here, but I will show you some other zones, zone control valves. This is the zone control valve for what I call zone 2, and it is a newer Honeywell type zone control valve. Here it is, and it shows it's currently open, and that is a normal position that the valves are in. And here's the wiring for it coming down. It has 3 wires. You really only need 2, but the 3rd wire allows that light to go from green when it's open to red when it's closed. And it's interesting. The first time I had a technician come because I had a problem, first thing he said was, well, we'll swap out all your zone control valves. They're old. Well, as far as I could figure out, they were all working. That was not my problem, okay? But in this particular zone, over time, I realized I did have a problem. And what it was doing, sometimes the thermostat would call for heat or cool, and I would get heat or cool in that zone, and other times not. And usually what I would do is take the thermostat off the wall, put it back on, and the zone would work. It turned out this valve, the old type valve that was here, was bad. And let me show you what this looks like. This is what a zone control valve looks like on the inside. You see, it is set to be normally open. This one has a spring. This is the old style. It has a spring on the inside, which it brings back to the open condition. And over here is where the valve control works, and it gets mounted in this box. It's a little electric motor, 24 volts AC. And as I move the inside, you can see right here where the motor has a key to it, and this would be normally closed. So all the motor has to do is to go against the spring tension that's in the valve. You also notice that the other end of it, the rod that goes through it, comes out the other end. And interestingly enough, and probably not known by a lot of people, but you can set these things for how closed you want it or open by moving one of those screws. You see how as I'm moving the inside, you see how it moves around and it hits this peg that says that's fully closed. But say you had a situation where you wanted it to be, this is fully open, this is partially closed, this is a little more closed, and this is full. You can take that screw and move it so that fully closed is not really fully closed. The motor will power it around to this position and leaves it somewhat open. And here, and you say, well, why would I need to do that? It is one of the adjustments you can make for airflow through your system. And there's a lot of those kinds of things. While I'm here, I'll show you. This is some tape that I used, and I wound up replacing, like this one. I replaced this whole assembly with a new Honeywell control valve. And the Honeywells come with a tube like this, and they have the shaft in it just like this. But interesting enough, the control unit that sits on top with the little green and red dots on it, it has a Allen wrench sort of sets screw on it. And you have to align what is normally open and normally closed. First time I had a tech swap one of these out, I wasn't paying any attention. And he didn't pay any attention to what he was doing either, because he didn't align the open and close correctly with the motor head. So if you do your own swap out of zone control valves, and it's really easy to do. If you look over here, there's metal up above and metal down below, and in this particular case, you can take that insulation off of there and fit it right in. It comes like this. You can fit it right in and then pull the insulation up around it good and tight and then tape it. It's no big deal to replace the zone control valve. The new Honeywell is like $110 or something. You can also buy motors for the old type, and that's exactly what I did on the main up here. You can't see it, it's right up in here. But you can get motors that will fit an existing system. They're 24 volts AC. You do have to pay attention, and it'll tell you, whoever's selling the motors will tell you that it needs to do such and such, and you have to have that identical motor. I don't think I have any here. This is the cover. This is the cover that was normally placed, and I think you can see it says model OR-10. This fit over top of the motor. It was a dust cover, if you will. I can't get it to come back on there. It sort of fits like that. That's what they look like, fully covered. And again, this one said Lennox and OR-10. My system is Lennox components. The furnace, the compressor outside, and so that's why it had a Lennox number on it, and I could find a replacement for the motor that was in here. Okay, so I told you the big zone up here, the biggest, and somewhere marked on there, I think it's right up here, you sort of need to know what size ductwork you have. Okay. I can't find it. There it is. And I think that's it just says new damper installed. The size of the duct, and I don't know right off the top of the head. This guy is marked, and I marked all of the, you might as well mark them. I can't know if you can see it or not. This is zone 2 master bedroom, and you see the airflow error there. I just like labels for everything. And this one down here says 10 inches. This is a 10-inch duct. And if you were to do any, 10 inch. If you get a Honeywell control valve, you need to get it. The valve heads are the same, but the collar that fits in here, you'd have to have a 10-inch size collar. Okay. Down here, let's see, actually around over here. Again, zone control valves are not difficult to put in. You should properly label everything. Here is the zone control valve up here for zone 3. You can see the duct comes off of the main and goes over that way. And there is the control valve for it. And it is a Lennox style, and it's currently showing green, which means it's open. I have no heat demand from any zone at this particular point. So I got 3 zones. You saw them. Okay. The zone control valves, if you do it yourself, just make sure when you put the motor head on that you're properly aligned with the inside open and closed. Now on the zone control valves, you have the same sort of adjustment possible with it that you had with the one I showed you, the old style, and that is you can control what fully closed means. And here on this particular one, you see the red lever here at the top. There's markings on it that says you can set it for position 1, 2, 3. This has a needle in it which moves. This is fully closed. This is fully open. And by using this red lever, you can adjust how much fully closed you get. And you see here, it just changed red. So you can see the white needle is moving over to the closed position. Probably the main zone has called for heat. And it's so on this zone up here, zone 2 is going to close up, not send any air out of the blower to zone 2. And let's see, yeah, and you can see this one's going to fully close. I don't have it adjusted in any way for that. Okay, those are the zone control valves, 24 volts AC, and in my case, these guys all come from the Lennox Harmony 3 control board. I have 3 thermostats, so the board thermostats get tied to the board then decides which one of the zones and control valve for the zone gets opened or closed. Okay. Now, in my situation, I go against probably the rules, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. I come from a background where I had a baseboard hydronic hot water system, and you didn't run hot water to zones that didn't need heat. Or so in my case here it is where you have return ducts, and this big guy over here is the return duct for the main house, and you see it comes in at the lowest point on the furnace here. The furnace and AC set of coils. It comes in at the lowest point. Okay, here is the return. This one right here is a return for the very small master bedroom, and that over there is the return on zone 3, which is a large room over my garage. Okay, well, I don't see any sense. It makes no sense to me to be pulling air out of a zone that I'm not heating, and zone 3, for example, only gets heated like a week a year at Christmas time. And the bedroom zone got a door on it, so I don't heat it during the day. So why do I want to pull air out of zone 2 and zone 3 and heat it, mix it with the air coming out of my main zone? You see all three. Why do I want to mix cold air with preheated air, 72 degrees or whatever it is? I don't want to do that. Now the return on the main duct is always open. It's always pulling air out of the main part of the house, no matter what. But in my case, when I'm not using zone 2 at all, I have put a zone control valve in the return so that I'm not pulling air out of a cold room and mixing it into the air down here that's going to be sent up and heated. Doesn't make sense. Okay, and they say, well, you put too much burden on your blower. It's gonna. I have a variable speed blower, and I have it set by the zone control Harmony 3 for so many RPMs, and I'm fine with that. It works this way. And down here I have the return zone control valve on my small bedroom. Now, on this particular case, I also installed down here a hand fixed sort of flow control valve. And the reason I did that is, you see from here where it enters the stack below the blower, this is the shortest run. This is the shortest return. And air, excuse me, air is going to come, the blower is going to suck air with the least resistance in this guy. So even though I shut off, the return is shut off, it's still, even when it's open, and I am trying to heat that zone, it pulls so much air out of this return, it doesn't adequately pull air out of the main or the other zones. So that's why I have a manual sort of adjustable valve here and to control the return air. And I'll show you when I get to the furnace why that's so. And it could have been different, but it wasn't. So anyway, those are the zone control valves. I have them on the returns of 2 zones, as well as the ones controlling the actual blower, cool, or heat. Those are the zone control valves. I have, as I said, it's not hard to replace these yourself. I have a collection over here of various pieces. They're sets. That is a bypass damper, and in certain cases, HVAC people will tell you that there's a certain pressure that you're going to get in your system based on the suction of the blower and how big your ductwork is, and so on and so on. And in the case of a small zone, you might be trying to push so much air that it creates a static pressure above your heating system. And what they do is they install a bypass, so air coming down here, some of it's simply bled off, and that's what that guy does. And what it normally does, it returns it back to the base here, and over here is a stub sticking out where there used to be this insulation. There used to be a bypass damper installed right down there, and when pressure got too high on it, it would open up and send that air back into the furnace unit. Now, I had a technician come out, and I was having trouble with my system, and I didn't want to learn it. So he said, well, you need to change the above the stack here. What I had was a straight up box like you see in most people do. And he convinced me that I needed to switch it over and put this monstrosity in place. And I don't think anybody would ever do this, except he did. Okay. And he also said, well, you need to put a bypass on it. So up off of here, you'll see a stub sticking out right there from the main off the main ductwork. He installed a flex duct that came all the way around and fit into this stub right here. Okay. Well, when he powered it up, all it was doing was sucking air from the output right back into the input, and we didn't even notice initially until we could get no suction in the master bedroom. Like, what's going on? The bypass, he just totally, obviously he did not really understand how bypasses are supposed to work, and I don't see the point of it. Somebody says, well, you'll burn out your blower motor. I don't think so. I have a massive main duct here. I don't think I need, granted, this particular zone going down to the master bedroom is a small ductwork. That room is small. I've had some problems getting it to work correctly in the cooling situation, because if that is the only zone open, it will sense that the coils are trying to freeze up here, and you see right there is a temperature probe. See the green and red wires? There's a temperature probe there, and one of the things it does do is decide if the coils that are right in here are getting too cold, and maybe it'll freeze over. So I do have problems with that particular zone being too small, and perhaps a bypass would work on that, but bypass seems just crazy to me. To suck away air you have cooled or heated and feed it back in. I just don't get it. There should be enough adjustment in your blower system to eliminate the need for a bypass valve. Anyway, that's pretty much on the zone control valves. Again, if you have a tech come out and look at your system and you have the old style, he'll say, well, you need these new fancy ones because they show you exactly the condition that the ductwork is in, either open or closed. And unless one of them is really bad and wonky, and it works sometimes and doesn't work another, you don't need new zone control valves. You know, they're trying to do their job and sell you new stuff, upgrade your stuff, and say, well, you know, yeah, that's not a bad idea, but it can be expensive. Like 3-zone control valves, to install them by a tech is like $1,500, and that's crazy. Now you can see over here, this is a side issue that on the output duct on the main, I have wrapped it with insulation, and I want to keep every bit of heat that I've generated with my natural gas furnace inside the duct. I don't want it radiating into this cold attic. So that's the reason I've gone to great lengths, and you can't see it, but that portion of the attic above there is double insulated. And down here is an example, add-on insulation, been put everywhere to try to beef up the biggest radiator in the house is in the ceiling, because up here it's not conditioned at all. There's not much you can do about the walls, but you can do whatever you can about the ceiling. And I have added insulation over there. I have some flooring in my attic. So down below here, I pushed down the paper-based insulation, which you can see over here, which is terrible stuff. Just terrible. If I pick this up, it'll be a dust cloud come off of it. And you can see where it's falling down up here. I tried to cover most of it up. Some people go so far they're allergic to it and they have to remove it from their attics. It's paper-based. It was a green initiative, you know. We'll recycle paper and treat it with a fire retardant, and we'll use it for attic insulation. Well, I guess it works, but it's dirty. Over time, it just gets, you can see some of it laying over there on the duct where it's falling off. The edge up here, I still have some exposed. I haven't covered it all up. Anyway, that's zone control valves, and you'll have them if you have forced air heating or cooling. And I think I've pretty much covered all of it. I don't know what episode of Uncle Ron and stuff this is, but hopefully I give you an insight into zone control valves and my particular situation, how I've also installed them in 2 of the zone return lines. And when I get to the furnace, I'll explain why I did that. Anyway, that's enough for this one. Hope you get something out of it. Bye-bye.